On this episode of Scots Abroad, we talk to one of the best mixed martial arts competitors in Scotland and on a European stage. We discuss his rise for the amateur game, finally leaving his job and turning professional, then eventually signing for one of the biggest promotions in MMA, Bellator. This interview was conducted ahead of his main event fight against Brett Primus in Dublin at Bellator 240. This is Scots Abroad with me, John Walker, and this week's guest, Chris the Bad Guy Bungard. Hello Chris, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
2 weeks ago, I was on Twitter and I seen a picture of you on holiday. And then I've went out to football and came back and I've got an alert from Bellator Europe's Twitter to say that you're now headlining the Bellator 230 Dublin event. How the fuck did that come about?
To be honest, I was actually on the back of a camel trekking through the Sahara Desert. This is a true story. And I fucked my data roaming on, which was 120 quid per 5 minutes, man. 120 quid every 5 minutes. And I just had a WhatsApp for Bellator, matchmaker, Jude Samuel, just basically saying, like, Peter Quealy's injured, do you fancy fighting Brent Primus in a couple of weeks? And I thought, well, I'm in the desert, I mean, I'll need to text my coach. And he's like, right, get back to me. I messaged my coach, Brian Gallagher, and he's like, his response was, why wouldn't we? So that was good enough for me. Only downside is that I was in basically Baghdad and there was no fucking gym. There wasn't a road to run on. It was legit the dodgiest place I've ever been to in my life. It was like south of Tunisia. And I've been to some scary places in my days, man, but this was right up there. This is straight up dodgy, Beirut fucking, like Team America shit, man. This is what this is. And then I was travelling to Poland for a couple of days, so I was limited to like running and using the treadmill or whatever. But so we've got 2 weeks to prepare for one of the best fighters in the world. So, but that's why I've got big Scottish balls. Know what I mean? Like nobody takes fights like these, and especially at short notice. I've
seen you say that before. I was watching UFC 247 last night, and James Krause stepped into the Trevin Giles fight.
Badass, man.
Fucking 30 hours notice, so he was called on Friday morning to come in and done a fucking decent job, man.
I'll tell you a true story, a funny story actually. Like, when I was an amateur, I took a fight in 2 hours notice. I went down to the Stadium of Light in Sunderland to corner my teammate Paul Craig as an amateur. He was an amateur as well, and somebody pulled out in the card. And I was like, wait a second, they're like 80 kilo, and I was like, I'm about 80 kilo, I'll take it. So then I then fought the guy, but I didn't have shorts or a cut of bogard. So the guy that I fought ended up giving me his spare stuff, and then I whipped him with his own gear on. It's a true story. So that was like an hour's notice. So I think, like, obviously, it's just I just love fighting, know what I mean? And you've either got it in there or you've no, and doesn't matter the occasion. That was amateur. In front of like 100 people to sold out 3 Arena in Dublin in front of the world, know what I mean? So it's only a couple of years in between it.
I think it's John Kavanagh's quote maybe in his book. He says, you either learn or you learn.
Win or learn.
Win or learn, yeah. And that's exactly it. You can't turn this fight down and let somebody else pick it up.
People are saying it's a win-win for you, Chris. Like, you're fighting in a couple of weeks' notice, but you mean that. But it is a win-win, but I still want to win. Like, I'm not there just, I lost, but I still should have done this. I'm going to there to win still, know what I mean? So it's got to be an interesting one.
Yeah. So I was explaining to you just before we started what these interviews are. So they originally started as a Scots Abroad, following footballers abroad. Yep. And it got to a point where we're going, why are we not following all Scottish talent? Yeah. Because I guess as a nation, we are terrible for bigging ourselves up. We love playing the underdog, but the fact is yourself, Paul, Robert Whiteford.
Need a bit of character, that's what it is, not
Joanne Calderwood. There are people who are fucking on the cusp of being really big stars in the MMA world, and we're still playing down to this kind of Andy Murray in tennis.
Yeah.
We've got loads of good sports stars.
I know.
So my mate was going, why wouldn't we just, like, we've already spoke about Bellator and UFC events on the podcast when we'll be doing our betting tips. Why wouldn't we reach out?
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how quickly you get back to me. I was like, this is fucking brand new. Like, we've been chasing footballers about. Yeah. And I was like, this is going to be really good.
Quite drama queens, isn't they, when it comes into stuff like that. But I think a lot of them are told what they can and can't say, you know what I mean? They're
exactly
on a leash. But I like doing stuff like that. I've not done a few in a long time, but you know what I mean, big fight news coming out and stuff like that. I've got more stuff to talk about, more funny stories. So it's just the more I do it, the comfortable I get in front of the mic
Yes.
as well. So it's for me as well. So
And the schedule and the way we kind of like to run the format is we kind of work through childhood, how you got into the sport you're into, and where you want to go next. So
ask me in, I'll answer it.
I'm just going to take you back. So you grew up in Hollowtown. I guess from day one, is football the main sport for you?
Aye, definitely. Well, pro wrestling, WWE wrestling when I was a child, but growing up, like I played football every day. I used to stay in the flats, and outside the flats it was like garages, lockups, and that was like that was my San Siro. You know what I mean? It was like concrete, but two garages was basically one goal for us. All pensioners try to go in their garage and get their car. We would jump up, shut the garage down, look them in, play football. That was just me growing up, was playing football at my front.
And you've continued to play football?
Aye, until the very day today. So I did a wee spell with Billwood today as well at a big league game against Bullfrog. So I've played like, amateur all my days, 7-a-sides, 11-a-sides. Had a wee spell at junior for a couple of games with West Calder, and then just amateur Saturdays and Sundays. Right now it's just Sundays. But I love scoring goals. I'm a striker. I just love playing football. And
Striker in all aspects.
Yeah, aye. And now that when I'm up against people now, like it's the wee fouls or people just be all dramatic. Oh, he's a fighter. Like that's terrible tackle, stuff like that. And really, I've been playing football before I was fighting. Know what I mean? So I think I don't know. I was thinking about this would be my last year playing football, but we're so close at getting our hands on like the Scottish Cup or the West of Scotland Cup, which are two of the biggest trophies, and I've never won any of them. I've been playing every year since I've been a boy in the Scottish Cup, and I love it. So if I had to win any of them, I maybe call it a day and then just focus mainly on maybe having a run at the title and Bellator.
And that's Billwood, and you've got Haverster in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Amateurs Cup.
Yes, they beat Lesmay Go.
When's that fixture coming up?
That's the 1st of March, so it's the first every month of the Scottish Cup. So we're at home, so
if anyone wants to go watch.
Yeah, definitely. I get down. We've got a great team, some great players. For a Sunday team, we train twice a week. For a Sunday amateur team, we've got like 25 players in a squad. All my other Sunday teams, I'm showing up, we're struggling to put 11 together, all drunk, mad with it. You know what I mean? You know the drill. But there's like 3 great players in every position in their team, so it's a different Sunday team than I've ever been.
Whether it's football or you're fighting, you get what you put back in. And I know
definitely.
people who got to like 30 and had wife and kids, and their motivation to play for a team was if they didn't have to train. Just turn up on Sunday and play, I'll join you.
So there's a good team vibe today. We were a bit off the ball today, we missed a lot of chances in that, but we didn't lose to the team that are like 7 points behind us for the league, so it was not the end of the world, but the boys are gutted that we didn't win.
You spoke about junior and playing a couple of games at junior. Was there ever a chance whereby in your teens that there was a potential to go down the football route?
No, not at all. I just love playing football, and I scored goals, but with the junior it was like the manager's son was up front, and I was banging him in at training. I would come off the bench and I would score, and then I would still be on the bench, and it was just like, fuck this, I'm going back to amateur. But play with my pals, which I loved, and usual. Go to games and go back to the pub you were sponsored with your pals and get a drink. So I loved that. But no, I think amateur was my level, to be fair.
Right, okay.
I can play amateur all day, I can score in goals, but I think there's a bit of a jump between that and professional, but I think amateur's my level, definitely.
And then at what age does mixed martial arts appear? So you talked about WWE. Is that really the intro to it?
It was. I just loved the wrestling growing up. I loved Bret Hart, putting people in the sharpshooter in school, like making them tap out and submit people. So I think that's what the submission side got me involved in MMA. But it was the sports centre in my hometown in Hollowtown was called like cage fighting, just like in the sports bar and sports hall. So I went to that with my friend Gary, and it was just like more grappling based and like sparring and stuff like that. And I just caught the bug. It was like I got shown like a few submissions, basic stuff, and I was like, this was quite good. Like grapple me someday, and then I just caught the bug. Ever since then.
How long do you do that for? Where it's just you're going to a class a couple of nights a week to the point where you go, I think I'm ready to step into a ring with somebody else who might want to hurt me.
So obviously, growing up, I was involved in a lot of fights in school, like primary school, high school. I wasn't a bully.
I hope the primary school fights were when you were still in primary school.
Aye, well, I once bought somebody for stealing my iron brew bar. I remember that they stole off me and I just butt them in the cheek. I think I butt their cheek off. I don't know. I was only a wee boy though, so it sounds vicious, but so I think I had a bit of the evilness in me for then, but it wasn't till well, funny enough, like I only trained like a month, and the guy was like, my coach at the time, Russell Bailey, was my first ever coach. Would you like your first fight? Because I was good at submissions, I was good at the guard and stuff like that. But back then, amateur, it was like there were certain rules, like head strikes and stuff like that, and kicks and that. And I was like, I'll take a fight, and it was in St Andrews, and I won it with a submission in pretty early doors. So then I just kept training with that gym, but they weren't that good. There was like 10 A's, and you would show up and there would be like 2 people there, so you didn't have a lot of training partners, and that's how I ended up moving to Brian Gallagher's, because he was doing jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, Scottish Hit Squad.
Yeah.
But I had a fight lined up, and I was like Brian, I've got a fight coming up in Inverness, and he's like, oh, we'll corner you in that. So I ended up moving to the Hit Squad, and I became the first ever fighter, MMA fighter from the Scottish Hit Squad. That was the first fight in Inverness, that was the first ever fight.
Right, okay.
So
when it's becoming to a point where you said a month in, do you go run that by anyone? So you've said you were in trouble at school when you were fighting. I've seen the documentary the BBC put together, and I've seen other interviews where you talk about your papa, John Bungard.
Yeah.
And he said, in one of the interviews, I believe he said, it was the best thing for you because you had a lot of aggression and it needed to be focused somewhere.
Aye.
And I mean, it makes sense that you'd focus it in a cage with another human being. But is that maybe who you turned to go, what do you think of this? Or did you already decide it was something you wanted to do?
I just fell into it. It wasn't, I don't even know the thought process in it, but it was just, do you want to fight? Aye, I'll fight. But I still played football at the time, and I was still working. I was working at the steelworks. I was working in steelworks, Excel Steel. And it was just like a wee hobby. That's all it was, just a hobby. And I just turned to it that was actually no too bad at it. But it was still pure raw and very, very basic. But I was no bad at it. So it wasn't, I didn't turn to anybody for any, like, think I should do this or that. I just honestly just fell into it. It was a hobby that I fell into.
I guess that probably answers my next question. So moving on to your amateur career, you said it's 1 month after training, you fancy doing a fight. Your weight at that time is welterweight. Is it just because it's amateur and a hobby and you're going, I'm not going for a weight cut so it's just what you can feasibly do?
I wasn't really educated. Honestly, I wasn't educated in one, dieting, two weight cuts, or 3 weight divisions. It was just like, right, I think it was my coach was just, Russell was like, right, you go to a fight at 77. Like, I remember me and my teammate at the time, Kev Devine, fought in Bathgate at Room at the Top. We weighed in, and there was a burger van right outside Room at the Top. We weighed in, went to the burger van, got hot dogs, cheeseburgers, he got chips and curry. I was sitting, eating, not mean, like, just none the wiser, like, what it was doing to our body or how we should have been doing it. This was 10 years ago, and 10 years ago to the day, and looking back at that, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, man. Just like pre-fight hot dogs and burgers, not mean. Ugh, madness. So that's how uneducated I was. I was just another wee cage in a fight in a cage. Fuck, some journey since then. No?
So when you get stitched up, so it's Phil Parkin's your first fight.
Yep.
How long have you got to prepare? Do you even know about Phil Parkin? Do you at that level? Do you have any? Because I know what it's like playing football. You turn up, you play the team you're playing.
I tried to Google him to see if I could get any other fights, and he just looked a big, strong. He was an older man, strong guy. He was veins popping out and all that. And I just remember back in the day, I had like a short back sides and all that, a bit of an head cut. And I remember we were in the changing room. It was in St Andrews, and it's like a big sports complex. And I remember for the changing room to the cage, I was running, screaming. I don't even know. I was just running to the cage, just hyper, just wanted to get in. And even looking back at that fight now, it is terrible. Like my technique, I throw a kick and my hands are at my side, and then the takedown, and even the setup, a triangle pretty quick. But he was a big guy. Even the triangle was so bad, I didn't know how I submitted him because they were spaced in the shoulder. I didn't cut the angle and close the gap. wow, man, I can't believe I even won that. But then I won it, jumped the cage. All my friends ran in the cage. It was bonkers. So they came through the back like, oh, that can't happen again. I'm like, well, I fought anyway, so we're not going back out there anyway. It was a weird one. It was a total weird one. But that was my first ever fight, and that was in 2010 in March in St Andrews.
So you were talking about coming out there and just being full of energy. How do you feel now compared to then? I think the worst thing that happened with the Cerrone McGregor fight was the ESPN clip before Cerrone entered the ring, which was him talking about how he feels sick, uneasy. His whole thing's faking when he walks out. He does not enjoy it. He's terrified walking out of the ring, and that's why it normally takes him a round to get going. You've got a lot of round one stoppages, and you come out in a specific way where I don't know, it's the kind of McGregor where it seems like there's no pressure. And then I think John Sloan said in his interview with you at the weekend, the minute you walk up to either touch gloves or the start with the ref, it's a total switch. You're then composed and set, and you know what's in charge. Is there anything changed, or have you always been kind of amped up and then ready to go when you get in the ring?
My favourite bit's a walkout, but in through the back when you're warming up, or maybe you've got 10 fights to go. I don't like that bit. 10 fights, guys coming in 9 fights, like try to warm up in 6 fights. Then the guys comes in like, Chris, you ready? Then it's like, fuck, it's go time now. You get your flag, few deep breaths. But once I'm going down the walkway, the red carpet, I love that. I feel like that's more like pro wrestling for me. Like, I engage with the crowd, I'm looking in this big arena, then I'm in there, then no matter what you can do, there's no way out. You can't like, right, that's me done, I'm out. Like, as soon as you cross that, it's fucking go time. So you need to be ready. There need to be a switch you can flick, as you says, because if you're cold or you're a slow starter like Cerrone against a fast starter like Conor, and you're out there in 40 seconds. Like, I've won in a minute, 2 minutes, stuff like that before. And it can be the difference between winning and losing. Like Al Pacino says, fucking game of inches. So,
so you won your first 3 fights. At what point do you start to then look at, I guess, as your amateur record goes on, there's a few losses in there. At what point do you start to look at and get educated about, I'm actually, the way guys are working, I'm in the wrong weight class. Because I'm fighting at the weight I'm walking around at almost. And there's guys who are educated dropping down from light heavyweight or heavyweight who are doing massive cuts to come and fight me. And now I'm starting to get to a bit where I'm plateauing in this division. How far in do you start to look at that, and how long is it before you then turn pro?
Well, my amateur career, I was fighting all the best in Scotland, like Ross Houston, Callum Hunter. They were ranked number 1 and 2, and me. I fought a couple of them twice. Ross went on to win the world title with Cage Warriors and stuff. So, and at one point I had 3 fights in 3 weeks or something. The one I took late notice, and I'd done another 2 in short notice. So I was very active, and they were all close fights. The losses were like split decisions or decisions. Nobody was like finishing me or blowing me out the water. So I was always taking, and wasn't really. I was going out partying all the time. I wasn't really training because I was an amateur. I was drinking every week and just being young, like a young guy would do. But I honestly wasn't, because I'd fought everybody and I was beating people. Brian's just like, I think you're ready for pro. The next fight's got to be a pro fight and that. So then you're starting for the bottom again and try to work your way back up. But like, it was starting my pro career was still pretty similar to my amateur career. And it wasn't until not that long ago I really started taking the sport serious. It sounds terrible, come to a professional with 33 fights or whatever, but like, it wasn't. It was still a hobby to me. Honestly, it was still a hobby because I was still working. I was working in the steelworks and working the doors at the weekend. It was still a hobby that I just loved doing. That
was the thing I wanted to put in the timeline here. Is there a switch between turning pro and still working in the steelworks, or are they both at the same time, or do you turn pro fighting but you're still working full time?
It wasn't until like 10 fights into my pro career that I got sacked for the steelworks, which is another funny story.
Can you tell that story? 'Cause, anyone who's listened to Chris Bungard on the James English podcast will have heard this story, but if you haven't, can you please just tell people, because it's a story that's going to ring true.
I worked in Excel Steelworks, which I can confirm a month ago closed down. So they done me they probably saved my life with sacking me, so I'll thank them for that. But I worked there for about 8 years, right? It was a fucking hellhole. The place was flooded. Everybody was a sickie every day. Sometimes I'd have to run the factory myself. It was just a nightmare, but I thought it was an unsackable nightmare, right? Because I knew how to work all the machines. I ran the place myself sometimes, blah, blah, blah. So basically, I took 2 weeks off. Well, I always took that time I took 2 weeks off and a sick, but I went to Ireland to train, then I went to Iceland to train because it had a big fight. The fight that I fought on was the first fight. I didn't have a job, basically, because that's why I got sacked for it. The ACB in Manchester Arena. So it's like, oh, you've got a disciplinary. I said, right, happy days. I'll take it in the chin. I'll go in. So it's like an actual meeting. I go in, it's like a table like this. And I'm just sitting there. I had to get a witness and all that. She's come in. She's got a binder, kind of. But she's got like A4 paper, and I can kind of see through it. And I could see it was like an Instagram picture of me and 3 Asian tourists, and it was in Gladbach in Germany. And I just look at it and I just done, oh my God, they started laughing. She was like, oh, do you think this is funny, Christopher? And I just done, why is it you got printouts in my Instagram? So then she just continues to like, it was basically like the CIA just putting all these pictures out in newspaper articles. And it was just, I've got a nervous laugh at school. I can't even hold it in no matter what, man. And I used to get put out, like, my table was out in the corridor sometimes in school just for my laughing. She's like, and this day you says you were had a hospital, but here, the Sun newspaper, you're training at Lennoxtown with Celtic Football Club. And I was just like, come on, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Then she's like, then you say you're ill here, you're in Iceland, here, you're in Germany with Celtic, here, you're in Dublin training, here, you're doing Newcastle winning titles. And it's just like, just laughing, like, all right, you got me, and all that, blah, blah, blah. But I still thought I was golden, you know what I mean? I was like, right, this is a heavy slap my wrist, though, but they're not going to sack me. Sure as day, next day, man, I had my books, and I was like, fuck. I'm like, oh man, I had a flat and a car. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to pay my bills and that? But so since he sacked me, that was when I went full time as a fighter, and like I was training during the day, getting my proper sleep. I wasn't tired, and it was basically the best thing that happened to me.
So you got sacked. Did you make the decision not to look for work, or was someone in your ear to say, I know the regular work and the paychecks there and it covers your mortgage, your rent, and the fighting is something you're doing, which I think you should do professional. Is somebody going, see, instead of that, you need to make this now your job, and that will spur you on to earn the money you need to now live? Is it anyone, is Brian Gallagher in your ear? Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. Brian says, you should go, let's do it full time. He's like, you can do some PTs in the gym, or I still had the doors at the weekend. So it was him that actually says, let's go full time, and what a journey it's been since I went full time. So that's what I says. Even though sadly they got shut down, it was the best thing that happened to me at the time.
And it's why Brian Gallagher and the hit squad's so well respected, is that it must be frustrating, because I've seen it when I coach football. I've seen kids who got to 16, 17 and didn't want to take it seriously, and you were so infuriating. So I guess I could probably feel Brian's infuriation with you if he sees you just pissing away a really good talent and going, mate, you stop, don't try and get another job. This is it. This is what you should be doing.
It's a big risk, though.
Yeah,
it's a big risk.
But the record and the fights you've been taking, and the rise that you've had, I guess, to the point where you're now at Bellator, has there been massive changes that you think, or anyone, like I know you've got David? Is it David McDonald that's your wrestling coach? Is that the name?
He was my teammate years ago, but not anymore. We've now got Finn doing our wrestling, who was Davey's wrestling training partner, who's competed at a high level in wrestling as well. So Finn's our man now. And
do you feel there's been a massive improvement then as you've been able to train more and more? And
definitely. It's not about the training as well, it's about the rest. Because I would go 8 o'clock in the morning to 4:30 at night. Even in 8 in the morning, sometimes I'd go to the gym at 7 a.m. for a quick hour, go to my work, do a shift to 4:30 and be back in the gym at 6 o'clock at night. Sometimes I would be in the changing room just sitting slouched down with my work gear on, just like couldn't be fucked. And Brian's like, come on, get out. I'm like, just knackered. So Now it's like wake up, have some good food, go and train, get back home, maybe have a nap, watch stuff, back to the gym at night. A lot more freedom, and good rest time as well. And I think that's the most important thing for a fighter.
In those years, do you think there is a specific fight, a specific moment where you realised where you were about to become? Even pre-Bellator, like this week I've watched all the fights I could get hold of, and I think the fight against Craig McIntosh that went the distance, I was really impressed because I'd seen, and what I tried to do was look at the fights you were fighting and then find as many videos of the people they were building up to that fight. And Craig had a lot of good finishes, and submissions, and I was like, to go 15 minutes, I seen him really good. It was a really good fucking fight. I really enjoyed it. And I was like, right, that to me seemed a bit where you went, right, you've been put for 3 rounds against someone who's really good at submitting people.
Yep.
And I've just seen like a continuous theme when I've been watching highlights.
Yeah, so Craig's good at certain submissions like Darcy's and neckties and stuff like that. So it was good. It was good to like defend his submissions and kind of dominate the fight, show a bit of stand up as well, some good wrestling, good defense, and some good grounding pound. So I did a bit of everything that fight. Plus it went the distance, so it shows that I can go a hard 15 minutes. It was a main event. I like Craig as well. He's a good guy, good fighter. So that fight I liked. Even though I lost it, I liked the Fletcher fight. It was a war, it was a bloodbath. But he's fought in the UFC. Plus he missed weight with a lot, so he came in a lot heavier as well. So it was good to compete with a guy like him that has fought in the UFC twice, and obviously I didn't get the win that night, but that was another hard 3 rounds as well. So I got fight of the year as well in an MMA show. But I liked that fight. That was a grueling one. It was blood everywhere and a good atmosphere. It was done in England, but I don't know, like ACB, the Flying Triangle against Ian Feenan, like he was 7-0 and 2 Scottish guys going down to England to fight on a Russian show. It was a bit bizarre, and there was a lot of 2 teams we don't really like each other, like the top teams in Scotland. And he won the Commonwealth at judo, and I beat him with a Flying Triangle, which nobody seen it coming. So I think that was probably, I don't know, Terry Brazier and all, but I think that was probably my best one.
They definitely
most satisfying one.
Pre-Bellator, yeah. The thing then, obviously, you become the first Scottish person to sign with Bellator, and I think you've said previously that Cage Warriors were looking as well. How did you then decide, like, in what orders the interest came in?
So I was working in a TV show set in Cambridge, and it was just we'd been offered a Cage Warriors 5-fight deal, and it was sent over to us, and it was something like I'll say it online, but it was something like a grand a fight, 1G for a fight, 5 fights if you win, it goes up £100, something like that. But you get the exposure to BT Sports, UFC Fight Pass. That's the way Cage Warriors work. Plus, it is a good builder to the UFC, etc. So we were like, right, we'll go with that. Like, we hadn't signed it. I was doing it in Cambridge, but I was happy with Cage Warriors. Massive promotion, obviously. Like, I was happy, but we just hadn't signed it. We just thought that was what we were going to do. And then next thing I know, Brian's messaged me like, Judge just off the phone, tell us not to sign anything with anybody. Give him 24 hours or 48 hours to come back with an offer. It was like 20 times more than that, man. So it's like, it's not a hard decision. Bellator's, to some people, is ranked number 2 in the world. They're rivals with the UFC, so it's a massive promotion. And like, it's no rocket science. Like, you need money to survive.
Yeah.
You need money to live. Everything is just costs more and more these days, and to have a fighter's lifestyle, you need that. You need that wee bit of security and safety. You're paying your bills and just living day to day. So, and the whole being the first guy to sign for Bellator from Scotland was definitely pushing me in that direction. So as soon as they gave us a day, they sent it over, and the contract was signed, and it was to fight Terry Brazier as well. So we signed it in 2 seconds as soon as it came out. So
was it just a 1-fight deal at that point?
No, it was 4 fights.
So have you got a new contract since then as well?
Yeah, like after my last fight there in London, A few days later, they sent me a brand new one. So they ripped up. I had one fight left in my 4th fight. They ripped that one up, and I signed a new 4-fight deal. A lot better than my first contract as well. So
yeah, so I guess people don't really know much about the promotions, but I guess like UFC for a while was the one that everyone knew, and even I think in the BBC documentary, Paul Craig kind of said it's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
I guess at that time it was.
Yeah.
But I think Bellator have realised that the European market's huge.
Yeah, definitely.
And they've chipped away where the UFC
Yep.
have failed to probably now. So I think that's probably where I got a lot of notification, and a lot of the stuff was UFC was pushing until BT Sport grabbed it. You could only get it online or pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And Bellator, the biggest thing they did was go to Channel 5
Yeah.
and offer their event. Although one of the events got interrupted in the last fight by Peppa Pig at fucking 6 a.m.
I heard that.
That wasn't too good. But and then I've seen Sky have picked it up now as well. So it's getting bigger and bigger.
I'm happy to fight in Channel 5 every time, because it's better for my audience. My family or my fans, like, everybody's got Channel 5. Not everybody's got Sky Sports or BT or Box Office, whatever, but like I feel more people would watch me on Channel 5, my type of fans. Like, you know what I mean? The people that don't really care about Sky Sports and cable and stuff like that. So I'd love to fight in Channel 5 every time, but sadly I think I'm on Sky Sports this one.
Well, but for us it's a timing issue.
Yeah.
Like I've sat up for UFC 247 to 6 in the morning last night because it's in America.
Yeah.
Bellator, it's my Sunday afternoon on a Saturday night. It's there and it's easy to watch, which makes it just so much more enjoyable. You've got the upcoming fight against Brett Primus. We talked about where the call came through.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about weight cutting because it's something that keeps cropping up. And the documentary you've done, there was a BBC documentary that was following Dean Garnett for Bellator 158. And for people who don't know it, so you walk around, or did walk around, roughly about 82, 83 kilos.
Yep.
Is that what you walk around at now, or is your diet more?
No, I'm still. If just naturally my body goes to that.
So you need to cut about 2.5 stone.
Yes.
To get into your fight.
Yeah.
You have 4 weeks notice roughly for this fight.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know all your cut-off points at this point, or is it main just we need to keep reviewing as we go?
Yeah, well, when I accepted it was 3 weeks notice, but I was still obviously in holiday, so there was nothing I could do. So the time I get back is about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then your last week's really about fucking cutting weight. So you got about a week and a half to 2 weeks of actual training. So I came back, I was at my nutritionist, Dean Kirk, who's from England. This is what we're playing with. This is what I weigh right now. This is when I'm fighting. He's like, right, cool. Here's your diet, strict diet here, and I want you to at this weight and this day. So that's just the way it is. I'm about 79 now, which is still pretty high, 9 kilos in 2 weeks. But I've done 80 odd in a couple of days. I've done like 11, 12 kilos in a couple of days before, so I know, and under that, then I can definitely make weight.
Right, okay.
But it's about how you cut the weight now, and how you rehydrate, what you're doing after it, when you're doing it. So these are the key factors now that I've picked up from my last 2 fights, because the lady fight, like, I feel like out of body experiences, like I was on ketamine or something like that. This is how bad it was. Like, I'm not joking you. It took me like 4 days to come back round, and I shouldn't even been in a cage. But like, if I make weight, I'm going to make that walk. But it's a learning. That full fight was just a beautiful learning curve.
Was Dean Kirk with you for that fight?
The lady fight?
Yeah.
No.
Right,
Fuck
good.
No.
Right, okay. That was what I wanted to talk about, because I think anyone who has watched the fight, it's not you.
No, definitely. I've got about 3 minutes in me or something, and just like my sex life. But then it's just like, I can't even watch it. I've not watched it. I get to the point at the start of the second round, and I'm like, nah, can't watch it, because I know like how tired I was in the bottom. I'm trying to survive. I'm actually surprised I lasted the 3 rounds, honestly, because I remember I took a big shot in the temple with an elbow, and I felt like I'd been hit with a lightning bolt, like a full shudder through my full body. Like, right, that's the hardest I've ever been hit in any competition. And I'm like, I'm about to get TKO'd here, or the ref got to stop it. So I'm just trying to hold on, and And I was concussed for months after that. Months. Like, I would look down and I would get dizzy. I'd go to put a sock on or my shoe on, and it would be like vertical. So I've got an MRI scan tomorrow, so hopefully we don't see anything for the Leary fight.
That's quite interesting. Is that a Bellator European thing? Because I heard Rafael Lovato talking about that.
Yeah. So it's usually to every 2 year, but Dublin make it the fighters need to have one every year, and your eye test as well. I think they suffered like a loss in the cage in Dublin 1 year. My friend Charlie Ward's fight, so they're really strict over there, just so they're on top of everything, which is alright with me. It's quite expensive and that, but if it's looking after me, then like I maybe show up tomorrow and maybe see something for the Leary fight. You never know, man. So it's saying to help the fighters, and I'm all for it. Some of it's a bit money spinning, like the safe MMA. They're trying to look out for fighters, but it's just money. So, but if it's to make it a healthy and clean sport looking after the fighters, I suppose I'm all for it.
And if anyone's not watched the BBC documentary or your one, can you just discuss to people what the last couple of days look like on a weight cut and just what you've actually put your body through? Because it's just terrifying.
So basically, fight week for me is all about water loading, drinking gallons and gallons of water, no eating any carbs, taking the salt out of your body, no salt, and then you're going in. A day before the weigh-in, you stop drinking and eating completely. Nothing passes the lips. Then I go in a sauna, dehydrated, still try to sweat dry. Then the next day, I go in a hot bath, stay sweat out more. Still no drank, still no wet, dehydrated, just to make weight, and it's pretty horrible. But every fighter does do it, but they're not as drastic as some of them.
That's the thing that confuses me now. I could understand it maybe if you were new to the sport and 10, 15 years ago, people had realised that you could cut weight and then balloon up and be 2 stone heavier on the guy you're fighting. Yeah. But when everyone's doing it, where is the actual advantage now? Is there because they're still fighting people in the division who will stay at that size?
Yeah. And there's people who will do it just a wee bit more. So they're just a wee bit heavier. But I think it's just everybody's doing it, so nobody wants to be the smaller guy. I don't think. I know a few fighters used to just rock up on the weigh-in what they were, like Gunnar Nelson, and I want to see like BJ Penn or something.
Yeah.
Like, people like them used to do it. But yeah, it's just like the done thing now, innit? But I think they're Bellator, I don't know if UFC are doing it yet, but if you're weighing in, they weigh you in the next day now. So when you get to your dressing room, they take your weight. So if you've put on a certain amount, I think it's like 10 pounds over.
Right, okay.
They say your next fight will be the weight above. So
when did that change come in?
I don't know, but I think everybody gets one chance at it. So I think I was just under, so I think I'm alright.
Well, that's good, because my next question was how much can you put back on, but I guess that's now restricted, so that's...
or how much can I, or it is legally to put on?
Well, legally we know now it should be no more than £10.
Yeah, no more than £10 apparently, aye. But I'll weigh in at 70, just say. Usually the next day I'm up at 78.
Right, okay.
So 8 kilo I'll put on, so I'm right up to welterweight.
Right, okay.
So it's madness because it's just all water, man. That's what it is, water. But it's a funny old way of doing it. But as I say, you don't do it right, man. It can be a tricky old game.
It's been fatal for
man.
Leonardo Souza.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of that. Dean Garnett stuff showed stuff that could lead to liver failure later on in life. I guess, so you're saying Bellator have brought that in. Are you familiar with ONE FC's change, the hydration testing? So they're only
they put everybody up? No,
they're only allowing people, you can only cut 5% from what they consider as your walking around weight. Okay. And they're doing hydration tests the week before fights.
Okay.
So they can see if people are just trying to dehydrate themselves to make weight, and they'll call fights off. Yeah. If, I guess it was a fair playing field and everyone was going at the weight, would you consider going back up to a weight that you're more, are you comfortable at the weight you're at now though?
Well, I've had 20 pro fights and 20 of them have been at lightweight, so... But if everybody's doing it, then I'll do it, you know what I mean? I feel like some of these guys in Bellator, though, are like, they're absolute juice monkeys, you know what I mean? I feel like half of them, you would need to do something to make it an even playing field, but the testing's just not as strict as it is in the UFC. So I'd like to see some of these guys get tested more, especially Primus and Chandler. These guys, man, they look like freaks. I get it, they train a lot, man, but they're definitely using something.
Chandler's the one that I keep hearing loads of jokes about on variety of MMA podcasts.
He's a total animal. I see the way he trains in that, but man, he's got like 100 veins, just like the thickness of my willy. You know what I mean? It's fucking. I just wanted to walk up with like a test tube or something, like fucking pissing this or give me your blood, and then you'll just see them all panic, like, oh, phone their manager, do I need to do this?
So it's 2 years since your Bellator debut. It's 2 weeks till the
1 year.
1 year, sorry, and 2 weeks until
Yeah.
the main event at Dublin.
Yeah.
Looking at premise, what have you seen? Where are the holes? Because even the Chandler fight, I've just watched 10 fights all this morning, and even the Chandler fight, I'm going, I thought he was in that.
Aye, if you're going 5-5 with Chandler, you're doing all right. And even the one he beat him for the title, I know he injured his calf or the whatever it was. Still a victory. He was still the champ, so he packs a bit of power. He has only had 10 fights, though. He's 9-1. He's only had 10 fights. He's a good wrestler, heavy kicks, heavy hands, and obviously he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So it is a weird one, but I see some holes in his striking. I mean, if you hit and move, he fought a guy called Santos, and I thought he lost every round, and they gave him a split decision win, so that could have been a loss. The first Chandler fight could have been a loss if he didn't get the relax. So he's beatable. Like, every guy's beatable in their day. But we've got a game plan, and it's down to me to carry it out correctly. And hopefully, my cardio, he looks a fit guy. He's been training for 8 weeks for Peter Queally. He looks in great shape. So hopefully my cardio is good enough to go 3 hard rounds if it needs to be. But I would see some holes in his games. He's definitely beatable. He's got a good guard. But we'll be prepared.
And that's a top 10 ranked Bellator lightweight. All going well. Where do you go after that? I know this is the boring part that you probably get the same thing every time. It's the hydro filling 13,000. For me, that's not even a question, because I see your social media, and the minute you make a post, you've got about 300 likes instantly. The hydro selling would be no issue whatsoever. Win or lose this fight. Is there anyone that you would specifically want to be? And we won't mention him because you already mentioned him a few times. I wouldn't bother with him. I would go for somebody else. Would it be like maybe Mario Said? Would that be a good one to try and call back in?
I'm choking for the Said fight. When I accepted the premise fight, I got a message from Mario, and he just said pussy. The guy that pulled out for me is calling me a pussy for accepting a fight with one of the hardest guys in the full world. You couldn't write it. The guy is. I think he's bipolar. I think he's definitely deluded. But one time he fought. This is a true story. One of his fights, I'll send you the link. He fought a guy, right, and it wasn't a charity fight. Before you say it wasn't a charity fight, it was an actual MMA fight with a guy with a prosthetic leg and a limb. So he had one leg and one arm, right, against Mario Said. People think this is a lie, but I've got it in my phone. And Mario's trying to knock him out, He then gets him down. He then tries to heel hook the prosthetic leg, right? He's tearing at this heel. It's a fake leg. Guy gets up, knocks him out. The guy not KOs him stiff. So that says it all about him. He's trying to heel hook guys with fake legs. But he's been sending me wee voice clips. Honestly, wee voice clips on Instagram, like, being nice, oh hey bro, and then in between the comments would be like, even though I fucking hate you, I want to kill you, bro, and then going back to being nice again. It's like up and down, Jekyll and Hyde. I just laugh at him. But I do think with his following and my following, we had something there. We had something that could sell. It was selling, and the hydro, man, that'd be nuts. That would be nuts. But I really want to beat that guy. But him or. Like, bring Pitbull, bring a champion over, like he's a beast and all. Like, I'd fight for a title in Scotland. I'd fight for it anywhere, but if you're going to sell the hydro, why not bring the world title over as well? You know what I mean? So Mario, Pitbull, guys like them. Yeah.
That'd be excellent. I just think it'd be really easy to do. The other thing, I keep hearing this crock up, right? So ignore title fights, I guess, as such. See with promotions like the UFC, Bellator, ONE FC, they've all kind of got their own market. Somebody was talking about this on Twitter. Similar to the WWE versus WCW type stuff that Crosswired.
Yep.
See when there's like a fifth and fifth, so fifth place in the lightweight rankings in UFC, they're not fighting for a title. Is there logistically an issue with, like, would there be room for cross-promotional fights? Or is it because you're so contracted, there's just no move?
Yeah. Bellator's are always open to that. They do it with Rising. But UFC are just they're not into that at all.
Yeah, I heard a lot about Ben Askren talking about the Alvarez switching over initially and then going back, and it was a lot of the stuff about matching the fee, and there was a lot of politics about make sure you don't fucking sign that deal because we'll come in, and then they weren't coming in for fighters after they'd chucked Bellator to the side, and you're going, I don't know why he's just done they working together. Like UFC are going to definitely knock themselves out of the European market if they keep letting Bellator dive on the way they are. It was just something that's curious because I think there's loads of good fighters where... Oh,
definitely. The one they put up the day was like Lima against Usman, the two welterweight champions, and they were squaring up. And Lima looks a bit bigger, and I'm like, that'd be a great fight, you know what I mean? Like, let's see who's the best welterweight in the world. But there was a list of them made, like, for UFC and one in Bellator. But I'm all for that. That'd be pretty cool.
Because he's only got one fight left in his contract, and we're not to use it. I do think you're talking about WWE and loving it. I do think there'd be a chance to let CM Punk fight in his next contract, and you go up a weight and take fucking CM Punk out of the Hydro.
Man, like, I'd be down for that. I would be down for that. I mean, fair play to the guy.
Give it a go.
Aye. But then he gave him a shite guy, and he still got his ass whipped against an even worse guy.
I think the biggest issue with him was he was coming into an event whereby he was put on as a headline slot, and people were going, he's fucking done nothing.
Mickey Gall was good today. Not me, he's a proper fighter. And then gave him that Jackson guy who was dog shit, and that guy just fucked him up and all. I'm like, aye, fair play, but back to the wrestling.
So after fighting, well, after this fight specifically, do you have a set goal? Do you have a number of fights or an age you want to get out at, or a figure financially? You go, I want a house, I want a second house to make money off that, and then I'll think about retiring.
I'm just buying my first house now. I'd like 50 fights. I include my amateur, so I've got 33.
Right, okay.
Oh, and 33, the next one's 34. So I'd like to go to 50 fights. But I'm looking to buy a new house now. Age-wise, I don't know, because I'm seeing fucking Yoel Romero doing backflips into fucking splits at 42-year-old. I'm only at 30, so I could maybe fight for another 5 years, maybe. But all these young guys coming up, the game just passes by a lot of these older guys, and the amateurs in my gym, like they're a fucking nightmare. And I'm just like, is this what it's got to be like when everybody starts loving the sport? You get all these athletes coming in. So we'll see how it goes.
It's a weighted question as well, because it depends on how many rounds you go and how many fights and how often you can get back into the ring. Because I've seen McGregor say ideally four fights this year, but if he goes 3 5-round fights, it's going to be fucked.
I know. Injuries as well, but Bellator seem to like me, so like I'll keep fighting as long as I can do this sport. How
have you been with injuries? Because I know you've talked about your broken arm. How have you been with injuries throughout your career then? Because you seem to be quite a regular fighter.
I've been fine, but like I kicked one of my teammates in January. He's Polish. They're just fucking zombies, man. I just kicked him, and I kind of cracked my knee a wee bit, kind of twisted. So I've had a wee issue with my knee recently. So apart from that, like not all I could point to everywhere that's been said at one point, but nothing that's touch wood that's kept me out for a long periods of time. Nothing broken, nothing torn, but sometimes it's just wee stupid stuff like my back goes all the time and wee spasms there, and a toe off on my finger, knees just with grappling and stuff like that, but nothing severe, touch wood. But the knees gave me a wee bit of trouble now, but it's been alright for the last couple of weeks.
And I think watching a lot of your fights, there's not been, like, I mean, I'm not in the ring, so I don't know how you feel, but it doesn't feel like there's been a lot of damage done, which I think with the rise and stuff like CTE, and you talked about Bellator doing brain scans, I think that's probably a lot healthier and will let you go longer because you know where you are regularly.
Aye, definitely. Because like the way the Fletcher fight, like there was some wars where I took a bit of headshots and a wee bit of concussion as well. So it depends, man. Like I can go through wars and I can win in a minute. It's just a weird sport, man. So
you're doing some of the classes at Scottish Hit Squad.
Aye.
Is the coaching maybe something that you will follow in?
Oh, I definitely. I love cornering my teammates. I love being there in the corner. I love helping them prepare. And I love seeing like the young ones coming through, beginners, people, newcomers just walking in the door for the first time. Like people think, oh, Chris Bungar, bad guy. Like being a fighter, it's not a lot of people want to like come up and talk to you or like ask. Some of them ask for photos, but like it's not like a football player getting asking a fighter for a photo is a bit different for a lot of them. But I like welcoming people, so they're like, oh, he's actually alright, and they feel comfortable in the gym, because an MMA gym, walking in, if you've never done anything before, can be a wee bit daunting. So I like helping them, answering me questions if I need a hand in, or even people that drop me a message about starting like a martial arts. I like getting some feedback, so I help out with the beginners on a Thursday and cover some classes when I need to.
Is there anyone to look out for that's maybe not fighting yet, or has just maybe had 1 or 2 fights that's coming through?
Like my 4 main training partners, but they're amateurs, but they're all like 5-0. And young Kyle is only 16. He's a beast.
Is that boy that fought when he was 15?
He's an animal, right? He's like 2-0 now or whatever, but like, he hits like a grown man. I don't really spar with him as much because he's still young, but he hits like a grown man, and the grapple's very strong, and he's always conditioned. So if he sticks in, he's still young. He's still to experience fucking sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know what I mean? He's still to experience all that, and that's sometimes where you lose the good football players. You know what I mean? The bevy or a woman. So they still to go through all that. But Michael Blair, Jordan Strong, Ryan Campbell. These guys are like my main training partners every fight, and they're all like 5-0. I think all of them are 5-0, and they're a fucking nightmare. Honestly, I used to take them down quite easily. Now it's harder to get them down, and now it's harder to keep them down. They're back up. I'm tired. They're constantly throwing good combinations and then wrestling me, and so I think if they all stick in as well, they could go really far in the pro career.
And I guess outside of fighting, people who follow you on your Twitter or not, you do a lot of stuff for suicide awareness and a lot of charity work. Is that stuff you really want to continue doing? Is there anything you also want to plug in, any charity events that are coming up so that people can help out?
Obviously I'm an ambassador. I've been labelled an ambassador for Chrissy's House through Anne, which is a charity funded suicide prevention organisation called Chrissy's House in Wishaw. But until the day I die, I'll always try and do my bit for it. Basically, not just Chrissy's House, just always get the word out there. You know what I mean? Because obviously suicide is quite high in our area, especially males like my age, around about my age, and they're getting younger as well, obviously, sadly. But I'll always be there to use my platform. People that maybe don't want to speak out and maybe see like a big stupid fighter like, oh, there he's talking about his feelings and thinks it's alright. That'll be alright for me then. So I know that's worked for some people, so long may it continue. If it helps a couple of people, just with me saying, listen, I'm not a counsellor or anything like that, not me, but I can say, if you're having their thoughts, there's a place to go, and that place to go for me is Chrissy's House, and I'm just like to be middleman, you know what I mean? Like, there you go. And sometimes I take people, I'll pick them up, take them, and then they'll relax a wee bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we are primarily a stats podcast on betting, so I cannot let you go without asking a prediction for the fight ahead and how you see it going and where you think you can possibly get this.
It's got to be boring though, because I feel it's got to go the 3 rounds and I'm going to be fucked at the end of it. But I'd love a wee him shooting in and me catching me a knee, like a wee dropping on me a knee and then a wee TKO finish. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? He's saying he's tapping black belts in the gym all the time, and so I don't think I'm going to walk in and sub this guy like I've subbed the rest of them. But I'll fucking try. I'll try knock him out, try to cut him with elbows. I'm just going to make it a fight, just going to make it a dog fight, but yet play it smart as well. It's got to have a bit of everything, and I don't know. It's just got to need to see how it plays. You just need to tune in. If you don't tune in, you're not going to know unless you read a tweet that I've won.
And we'll be watching. Chris, this has been absolutely awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for doing this.
Anytime, man. I'm happy. I'm glad that you've asked me to come on and tell my wee fun story. But maybe after a big win, maybe do it again. You know what I mean?
We would appreciate it.
Crack out some of the funnier stories. Bit explicit stories, man.
Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Scots Abroad is written and produced by John Walker and Gary Black.